Today is April 11th, 2024. The interviewee is Rose Miednik, M-I-E-D-N-I-K. My name is Barbara Byer, B-Y-E-R. We're at Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida, USA. Please tell me your name.
Rose Miednik.
And can you spell that?
R-O-S-E-M-I-E-D-N-I-K.
And what was your name at birth?
Rose, actually Razel Kleidermacher, K-L-E-I-D-E-R-M-A-C-H-E-R.
And what other names did you have, if any?
Well, in South America, they called me Rosa or Rosita.
What did your mother call you?
Razel.
And what is your date of birth?
March 30, 1940. I just had a birthday.
How old are you now?
84.
Where were you born?
I was born in Poland.
Where in Poland?
Sarnaki.
And could you spell that, please?
S-A-R-N-A-K-I, I think.
What is the closest city to Sarnaki?
Shedlitz, which I don't know how to spell it, near Warsaw.
And where did you live in Sarnaki?
Well, the town was named, we lived in that little town called Sarnaki.
Can you describe your home?
No, because I was little, very little, and I don't remember much. But I do remember there was, from what my mother told me, that we went to the river once and they had just bought me a pair of new shoes and I forgot them in the river.
And why did you go to the river?
It was the river book, I think, and I don't know. We just went. I have no idea when we went there. I guess to look around or something.
You say you don't remember too much of of your home, but was there electricity and plumbing?
Oh,
and
no,
running?
no, we had none of that stuff. No, we had none of that stuff. From what my mother told me, they had like a little oven in the wall to warm up things, and I really don't remember. I don't know.
What do you remember of where you were sleeping?
I guess I had a cot. I guess we share I guess we all share like a room, and I really don't remember because after my parents got married and the war started, that they had to escape. So when the Russians came in and they said you have a choice to stay here or to go to another place, so my parents chose to go to another place, which was Siberia. So I was very little. I don't remember anything.
And what year was that?
I guess 1941. Right after, yeah, something like that.
What do you remember of the Russians coming in?
I don't remember anything.
What neighbors did you have?
Polish neighbors.
Approximately how many Jews lived in Sarnaki?
I have no idea.
Did you have any relationships with the non-Jews?
I was too young, so I don't remember if I had or I didn't.
Can you remember any special items when you were a baby, when you were 1, 2 years old?
No. Sorry.
Favorite toy?
No, didn't have any toys. I just remember that after all that happened, after Siberia, after this, that my father was a tailor, and he made me a little doll from little rags. That's the only toy I had. That was later on.
Tell me your mother's name.
My mother's name is Michla Kleidermacher. Michla Kleidermacher.
And what was her maiden name?
Roisman. Roijsman. I think that's how you spell it.
Where was she born?
She was born in Konstantin, also part of Poland.
And the closest city to that?
Gee, I have no idea. Bad in geography.
Can you recall her date of birth?
Yes. May 5th. Gee, I don't remember the year. I have it. Oh, I didn't write that down. Or did I?
It's okay, we'll go to it later. We'll go to it later.
Okay. Sorry.
What was your mother's occupation?
My mother basically was a housewife. But when she came to United States, she worked in a clothing factory, because my father was a tailor and they worked in Manhattan. She was a button sewer.
Tell me about your mother's personality.
She was a tzaddikus. That means she was very righteous, but she was always sad. And I feel she was sad because she felt guilty that she was the only survivor from her whole family. But she also was strict in certain ideas that you have to educate yourself, you have to know everything, you got to be a good person. She was heart of gold. Anybody that did this with her hand got a tip money, even though they didn't have it. She was a wonderful woman. I miss her every day.
How was your relationship with her?
Oh, like this. We were inseparables. I would call her. I mean, this is when we were already here in United States. I would call her all the time, every day. We talked about a million times a day, and we were very, very close, very close. We used to, in South America, we used to go to the market together, and when she opened up a little store in Bolivia, I was always there to help her. I used to go with her to buy the merchandise because I spoke Spanish very well. She did too, but you know, I was able to handle with the people that were selling the merchandise, and she was just great. I remember her every day, every sentences. She always had something to say about something, you know, and it was so true. She was really an Eishes Chaya. She was.
Describe that word that you just used.
Eishes Chaya means she was a good soul, like a righteous person in her own way.
You said she had a store in Bolivia. What kind of store was it?
It was a schmata store. You know what a schmata store is? Yeah, we had all kinds of things like sweaters and hats and scarves and little trinkets, stuff like that. Yeah, that was to help out because my father worked in. My father did alterations, and he worked in a shop, so that's what we did.
Let's go to your father now. What was his name?
My father's name is Shmuel Yankel. Samuel. He was called Samuel or Sam Kleidmacher.
And where was he born?
He was born in Sarnaki, Poland.
His date of birth?
I think it was in the 1917. No. I have it all written down and it's just not coming back.
And you said his occupation was a tailor.
He was a tailor since he was 13 years old. That was his trade. And whatever he made with his 10 fingers, that's what we lived on. And he was a great tailor. He as a matter of fact, he made all my clothes. He made my bar mitzvah clothes for my children's. My girls, he made clothes for my mother, for my daughters, and people loved him. He was gentle, a good soul, gentle. He never went to school, so he you know, so the only thing he knew is how to work with his hands, and he was just so good, and everything was for the children, the children, and the children. We used to walk in the street, and he would see a penny, he would pick it up, and when he'd come home, he had a little curio with little tiny compartments, and he would put in the pennies until they filled up. And when the kids came, he gave each one a part of his finding. And yeah, he got sick in Bolivia. He got sick, and I took him to doctors and to hospitals, and because my brother lived in Jersey, both my brothers, and they used to come in for the weekend. But I did all that. Yeah.
You started to describe his personality. Can you tell me more about his personality?
Well, he was such a good man. He never yelled. He never screamed. He never, he never he never said to me, don't do this or don't do this. He was so passive. Well, whatever my mother said, he said, okay, this is good, it's okay. And he was gentle, good person. And of course, tzedakah. He was always giving tzedakah and helping other people. And they were 12 children. There were 12, and only 5 survived. So he had a twin sister. And there was, from 12 children, there's a lot of cousins and family all over the world, So I'm lucky that I have a lot of cousins.
About how many people survived the Holocaust in your family?
In my family, my mother was the only one. And my father's side, were only 5. One uncle went to Argentina, and a couple of them went to Israel, and my father, to South America, and we survived with my other uncle, that is my Dave's father. We survived together, and we went to Germany, and from Germany we went to South America, and they went to United States.
Can you give me an approximation of possibly how many of your family members' entirety perished during the war? Well,
you want a number or names? Or?
No, just number, approximate.
Well, my mothers were 6 on my mother's side, her immediate family. They were murdered in Treblinka. And from my father's side, I never knew my grandmother or grandfather, because I don't know, they were unknown. When I was at the march, and I tried to look for something, that was marked unknown, and a couple of his brothers too. And the rest, they immigrated to, who survived, they were in Argentina, Israel, and this. But I did find in Treblinka, I did find a stone with the name of the town from where my grandparents from my mother's side came. It was just the name, Sarnaki. Yeah, it was.
So approximately how many perished? Just take a look.
I would say about 12.
Tell me about your brothers.
Well, after Siberia, we were 14 months there, and my father worked very, very hard in this labor camp. And as I said, he was cutting down wood to get a portion of bread to live on. And from what I understand, you know, it was very cold, and my mother couldn't go to work because I was a baby. She had to take care of me. And
what year was your first sibling born?
And after 14 months being in Siberia, which was not easy for them, because I'm sure there was no food. I survived on my mother's milk, because miraculously she had a lot of milk, and she also surrogated for other mothers that didn't have food, babies to give them the milk. So after 14 months of my father having hard labor, and a lot of people who were older, they're not survivors. The sick people didn't survive either. So he used to really work hard to get a piece of extra bread, you know. And then we went to Georgia. I don't know, Gruzia, which is Georgia. And we were there for 4 years. My brothers were born there. And things were a little bit better.
What year? What year was your first sibling born?
My younger brother was born 1945.
And the other brother?
He's a little 1940. My brother is going to be 82. So what makes it down?
Tell me their names.
Okay. My brother Mike Moshe Kleidermacher, and my younger brother Henry Kleidermacher.
And which brother was born in 1982?
No, he's going to be 82, so I don't know what makes that. We are like 2.5 years apart, all of us. So
1943, possibly?
Something like that.
And the other brother's name?
The younger brother's name is Henry Kleidermacher.
And what name was he born with?
Einach.
And how was your relationship with your brothers?
Very, very good. We were very, very tight, very loving, tight family.
Who lived in the house with you besides your mother, your father?
My 2 brothers.
And was anybody else in the house?
No.
How would you classify your family's economic status?
Where we were not rich, that's for sure. And we were poor, but we always managed. We managed when we were in Germany, in the misplacement camp. We also managed. Things were a little bit better because my father always worked. He always worked. And so we had no luxuries, but as long as we had enough food and a roof over our head, you know, there was luxury. Because actually we were the lucky ones, because we survived.
You mentioned earlier your grandparents Which grandparents do you remember?
I don't remember any of them. I just remember them because I have one single photo of them. So I remember my grandfather's name, Noach Roisman, my grandmother's name, Sarah Roisman, my aunt Tama Roisman, Ellie Roisman, Moshe Ber Roisman, and Leah Roisman.
These all survived.
They're all perished
They all perished.
in Treblinka. So my mother, Michla, was the only survivor.
What language did you speak at home?
Well, Yiddish.
Any other languages?
Well, in Poland, I don't remember speaking any Polish. And Spanish in South America. And Yiddish, Spanish, yeah.
During your time out of the United States, what holidays did you celebrate?
Well, when it came to all the Jewish holidays, we always celebrated. My mother was, she wasn't a Rebbitzin per se, but we celebrated all the holidays, and it has to be done just the right way. My mother was very, very strict about that. Also very strict about teaching us how to read and write Hebrew and Yiddish, which we had a teacher come into the house for that.
So would you classify your family as Orthodox?
No, not Orthodox, but we did obey all the Jewish laws, and it had to be kosher, 100% kosher. Yes, my mother was very strict about that.
Rose, describe yourself as a child.
Well, I think I was a happy child. You know, I had in Germany we had little friends, and you know, went to I think kindergarten with other little kids, and I had a little cousin, which was Dave's brother, and we were very, very close. And
Who's Dave?
My cousin Dave, and he had a little brother, and one day he wanted to go to there was in Germany there was a if I remember, there was a soccer game, and he crossed the highway and he got killed by a truck. That was very, very devastating for me. But otherwise, I was always happy and go lucky. I like to sing. I like to dance. I like to, you know, to do nice things today.
So you've described basically your family life. So let's go back now to the start of the war. Tell me the events that happened to you and the family.
From what I could not remember, but from what I wrote down, and I learned that we were going to Siberia. We had to go to Siberia because if we would stay, at that time we didn't know what was going on, but the Germans came in and the Russians said, you want to stay here or we'll send you to Siberia. So my parents decided to go to Siberia, and that was a very long trip with wagons and in cattle cars. A lot of people, hundreds of people in the same car with babies crying, old people, and until we got to Siberia. It was not an easy trip. I mean, from what I gathered, there was a lot of, and the train only stopped when you had to, go and to the bathroom or something, and then we didn't have enough food. They gave my parents, I think, a ration of water and a piece of bread or something, and we had to just pack up whatever you can carry and just take and go. You couldn't take everything. You couldn't. So that's what happened.
So how did the men in Sarnaki escape the roundups that were happening?
Well, I don't know. I guess they fled. They fled. I think a lot of people went to Siberia. They sent a lot of people. There were this wagon, hundreds and hundreds of people.
Where in Siberia did you end up?
Oh, I'll tell you. We end up in the camp 93 by the river Labushkaya, and that's in the province of Arja. I have no idea. Arkhangelsk in Oblast. I had to write them because I didn't know about it.
And can you describe the conditions of when you ended up there?
No, not good conditions. It was very, very cold. From what that my mother had said, she had frostbite on her feet, and we just had one. I don't know what this little house was built. If it was it couldn't be from wood because we would probably freeze to death. It had to be made out of some kind of a concrete or something, and we could light a fire, and a little fire, and had a little water with a kettle, and we could do something, either because we used to go to the woods. My cousin used to go to the woods and pick mushrooms and blueberries, and we would boil that, and we would have that.
And how long did you stay in Siberia?
14 months.
And how old were you when you left Siberia?
Maybe 2. I'm bad with dates.
And then you went to?
We went to Georgia, Gruzia.
How did you get there?
Also by cattle cars, and not a lot of family went there. We went there because from my cousin's side, he had an uncle in the army, and he says, go there, it will be easier, and you will be able to find work. And so our family, which, his brother, my father his father and my father were brothers, so we all went together. And it was a little bit better. We had a little bit more room, and we had more food because my father really worked, and he was able to get more. Nothing luxurious, but we were not like starving.
If you had
I still didn't eat. I survived 2.5 years on my mother's milk. I'm not ashamed to say that. I survived.
So if you had to tell me, what is your absolute earliest memory?
I think it would be in Germany.
So all these moves, then you
yes.
really...
We moved from Georgia. We went back to Poland because my mother wanted to see what happened to her family. So we went back to Poland, and it also took a long time in cattle cars and wagons. We got to Poland, and everything was destroyed. Everything. My mother's family was gone. Everything was gone. We had nothing. And we had to escape in the middle of the night because the Polacks were trying to kill us. So
actually, where were you when you found out the war was over and Poland was liberated?
We were in Georgia. I think we were in Georgia.
And so what made you decide to go back to Poland?
My mother wanted to see where her family. My mother wanted to see her family.
And you said that everything was destroyed.
Yeah, and my mother's family were taken They were rounded up and they were taken to Treblinka, and they were murdered there.
So from from Poland, then what? When you went back to Poland, how long did you stay?
We didn't stay long. We had to leave right away, almost immediately, because my mother had, her family was gone, and there was nothing there. Everything was destroyed. I don't, you know, I don't even have a birth certificate.
How were you treated by the people that were left in Sarnaki?
There were virtually no Jews left. The Polacks.
What happened with the Poles? How did they treat you?
How they treat us? They wanted to kill us. That's why we had to escape. Whatever we had, we just escaped. And we were actually, the UNRWA helped us to go to Germany. United Relief something. And we went to, and this is how we got to Germany, also by, you know, first by wagons, and I guess by trains, and we got to Germany, to a misplacement camp in Neufreimann. I don't know the English word, and we were established there. We had a nice, from what I remember, we had a room, and we were able to get you know, stuff for my mother to be able to cook, and it wasn't bad. In Germany, it was not bad.
How did you find the organization that helped you escape Poland, the UNRWA? How did you discover that they were there helping Jewish families?
I have no idea. I guess my parents discovered it, because I don't know. I was a child, so I don't know.
So then when you arrived in Germany, tell me about the camp, the displaced persons camp.
Well, it was each one had like a little apartment, and we were all together, and we had family there, and we even had weddings there. Two of my cousins got married there, and
which cousins were they?
My cousin Lily, who got married to Sam Sherb, who was a football player, and then they immigrated. They went to United States from there, and also another cousin. And I forgot to bring that picture where I'm having a little drink with my cousin that got sick. They got killed. So from what I remember, it was okay. It was okay.
And what kind of schooling did you have throughout all these years that you were moving from place to place?
Well, I went to kindergarten.
Where?
In Germany. In South America, I went to a regular Spanish school. When I got older, I went to another school that was more like a secretarial school, you know, to learn calligraphy and all that. And then when I came here, I did not go to school. I taught myself whatever I could.
So where was the DP camp located in Germany? Where was it located? What was the closest city?
I know it's called Neufreimann in, I don't know, I haven't.
Did you have any contact with the outside world? Outside of the DP camp? Any
No.
local people?
I don't remember that.
And who provided the assistance in the camp? Who were they?
Well, the United Relief something, UNRWA. That's all I know. United Relief.
And were there specific people that you can recall that were there that helped you?
Well, I know that my father worked, and we had cousins that they went to Israel. From there, my cousins, my father's twin sister's daughter went to Israel with her father and her brother.
And
They
their
went to
names-
Israel.
Their names?
Their names is Bella, Chaim, and I forgot her father's name. Dvorsky.
These are all Kleindermachers?
They were Dvorskys because, you know, they were not Kleindermachers. They were Dvorskys because they were married to another person, so it was Dvorskys. And I still have them. I still have a lot of cousins in Israel with that name.
So what kind of jobs did your father have then?
Always tailoring, always mending, doing clothing, working, as I said, with his fingers. That was his trade, and this is what he did.
And how long were you in New Farman?
Till 1947. Then we were sponsored from my cousins that they were in South America to go to Bolivia, to La Paz, Bolivia. That's when we left. But we stopped in France for 7 months, and another place which I really don't remember, in Belgium, and then we went to Bolivia, to La Paz.
And what were the circumstances that made you stay in France for 7 months?
We were waiting to get it to come to for the quarter to get into to Bolivia.
And how did you get there? How did you get to Bolivia?
By plane.
And tell me about your arrival.
Well, it was very high up on the mountain because La Paz is in a valley. So yeah, we got off the plane, and there was a bus that took us down to the valley. And
Let's stop for a moment.
The other camera stopped recording, so.
And so who did you say sponsored you to go to La Paz?
some cousins that they were there,
And who were they?
and they were. It was from my father's side. It was they. You want the names? No. It was Peretz Efremovich, and their children is Miriam, Jose, and Germán. And there was who else was there? And another cousin. So they sponsored us, and so when we got there, they had a little apartment for us, and I don't remember the street of that little apartment, but I do remember that we had two bedrooms. My parents slept in one, and me and my brothers in another one. We had like a little kitchen and a little sitting area. So right away, of course, my father started to work because they provided a place for him to work. And I started to go to school there, but I got very sick. I caught typhoid, and they had called the doctor, and the doctor said that he couldn't do anything about it. He gave me some kind of medication, but my fever was raging for about 2 weeks, very high fever. And I was same room with my brothers, and thank God my brothers never caught that, because that's a very contagious sickness. So after 2 weeks, my fever started to disappear, and I started getting better, but I was very, very weak. So like being 2 weeks in bed, I had to start to learn how to walk. But I came out of that, thank God. And My father was working, and then after 2 or 3 years, we got a better apartment, and it was, if I remember, this was here, and there was like a house, a building, and we had a terrace. So, my father used to love to raise like ducks and chickens, on the terrace, because when it came to a holiday, he would go, he would feed them and make them fat, and by then I was already I had some friends, and
Tell me about your friends.
I had very good friends, and we got along so well, and it was we belonged to a club. We used to get together, and we used to dance, and we used to go on excursions to different parts of Bolivia, like Cochabamba, Santa Cruz, all these places. And I had a very nice youth life, very nice youth life.
So in La Paz, were you amongst many other Jewish families?
Yes, yes. I belonged to Maccabi, which they were all Jewish.
And how about school?
Yeah, I went to school.
And how many grades did you complete?
I went to school, but it was a different kind of school. It was like I went to a regular school, a Spanish school, and then I went to another school to learn secretarial work. That's what I did. And I didn't complete it because we had my cousins that came to United States sent us, sponsored us to come to the United States.
And how long were you in La Paz?
10 years.
So basically growing up in La Paz.
Yes. Very happy there. Very nice. Then we moved to another apartment, which we had to go up to flights. But it was nice. We had no hot water. We had no refrigerator. We had no telephone. And but life was good. We used to take our livestock, put it in a bag, me and my brother, that was our job, and go with a bus to the shoichet. You know what a shoichet is? And he would kill the livestock properly and wrap it up in newspaper and put it in the bags, and we'd take a bus and come back home. There was some job. And then my mother would take him out, and she would, flick the chickens and then all that, the feathers, and she would kosher them, the whole 9 yards. And of course we had to buy ice because we had a little windowsill big enough to put the ice and put the chickens until my mother was ready to cook and to prepare stuff. So we had a milkman coming in and pour milk from those milk cans. And all the dairies had to be kept there. So we couldn't cook a lot because, we had only certain space and only so many days that this could last, because we had to keep replacing the ice. But I remember a good life. It was fun. It was nice.
So thinking back to those days, what was your favorite thing? What was your favorite thing to eat? What was your favorite food?
Well, I was never particular about food. As long as I had it, I was happy. Because growing up, I didn't have a lot of it. So I never ate the local food. Sometimes, depending, if it was a chow chow, which was made out of corn and stuff like that, and or a salteña, which is like a dough, and there was like stuff in there, vegetables and sauces and stuff. There was, yeah.
How did you feel about leaving La Paz when you knew you were coming to the United States?
Well, I felt sad because I left some of my friends, And I had very, very good friends. One of them was Ruthie, one of them was Bibi, and we used to socialize and get together and have little parties.
Their last names?
Stern.
Both are Stern?
They were sisters. I never found them. Never found them. I put it, that's why I use Kleidmacher and Miednik, so that, and I put it out there, but I never got a response.
Do you think they're still alive?
I hope so. They were my age. But then you never know.
So we're going back to how'd you feel about leaving?
Yeah, I was sad. I was very sad to leave, but we had to go, so we went. And
what year was that?
1957.
And how did you get to the United States?
We came by plane.
What were your first impressions when you got here?
Well, it was hot. I think it was June. I think it was very hot. And I don't know. It was, it felt a little bit strange because I didn't know anybody. I was like a greener, like a greenhorn coming to a place and you don't know when my father was here before, because my father came before to secure an apartment and to get work. So he came before. And then my brother Moshe came also before us because they came from Williamsburg to get students, because he was very bright, very good student, and they took him to the yeshiva to study over there. So it was me, my mother, and my brother that came together. Yes, and I remember we stopped in Panama Canal. We stopped in a few places before we got here. So when we got here, we already had in a little apartment in Brooklyn, Eastern Parkway in Buffalo. I remember that. I had no skills. I didn't know what I was gonna do. So somebody got me a job filing in Manhattan. Wow.
What was your recollection of the English language?
Well, I knew a little bit of English because I took it in the school in Bolivia. So I wasn't totally. I knew some of it. I wasn't very good at it, but I knew some of it enough to be able to file, to get, when I got the job, to file and to get on the train and to go back to the house. And then I stopped there and I got another job. I worked in a bakery, and and then until I met my husband. I had so many people saying, I'm 17 years old, you want to get married? No, I don't think so. But this one said, oh, I have a shidduch for you. Oh, he's very religious. And says, nah, not for me. He's this, and that. And so my father, he was working with a guy that he met on this job. And this guy said, one day, it was raining, and this guy had a friend that was going to pick him up. And so my father asked his name was Labis, may he rest in peace. And he says, you know what, it's raining. Could your friend take me to where I live? Oh, he says, no problem. So Steve, my husband, when we came to pick him up, my father thought that he wasn't Jewish because he was, dark, tall, handsome, he's not Jewish. But my father did ask him, Bist Ayit? Are you Jewish? He said, yeah, ben Ayit, okay. So he told him the story, you know, I have this beautiful daughter that's coming from South America, and she's so beautiful, and blah, blah, and all that. Oh, really? Okay. So this guy, Labus, said to my husband, listen, I have a girl for you. He said, okay, I don't mind meeting her. In the meantime, he already was dating somebody else. So he was a beautician. My husband was a beautician. And and one day, this guy, Labus, says, come, I'll take you to the beauty parlor to see where he works. So I said, okay, you know, and just for the hell of it. So I met him and a partner, Al and Steve. And Al's father owned that beauty parlor. So I wound up going out with Al because he had a girlfriend. So when Steve heard that I went out with Al, he got a little bit jealous. He dumped his girlfriend and he asked me for a date. So, and Al had it all planned, you know, I'll take you to my family. I met his family, he's planning the wedding. I said, oh my God. So I stopped going out with Al because I liked Steve better. And of course, that did not sit well with Al, and he told his father, fire this guy. He took away my girlfriend. So we went out for about 6 months. And then we got married.
And what is the date of your wedding?
February 14th, Valentine's Day.
And where was Steve born?
Steve was born in Pinsk.
And how did he survive the war?
He was a Holocaust survivor.
How did he survive?
He survived, you know, hiding. Yes, his mother worked in with some kind of a general, and you know, and they managed to survive. They managed to survive. My mother-in-law managed, my father-in-law, and the brother. And the sisters, which they wound up, some of them in Argentina and some of them in Israel.
And the date of your wedding again? I'm sorry.
February 14. We were married 58 years. That was 7 years ago. 1950. How can I forget the name? Okay. 1959, I think. 1958. Somewhere in between. I was 6 months in this country, you know, when I got married. I was
and
not
what
even 18.
children were born?
My children were born in Brooklyn. Around where we used to live, there was the Brooklyn Jewish Women's Hospital. And that's where my son was born and my 2 daughters.
And their age and their names?
Benjamin is 64. Benjamin Miednik. Susan, she's Hoffman now. She was born in, Ben was born 1959. She was born 1960. They're like 3 years apart. And Lillian Spiegel.
And grandchildren?
Yes, I have 9. From my son is Zachary, Jacob, Maxwell, Alexa. From my daughter, I have Brandon, Shane, and Adam. From my young daughter, I have Taylor and Benjamin.
So, how often do you speak about your experiences in other countries?
I started speaking now recently because I knew I survived the war by a miracle. I survived it, but I never considered myself a survivor because, you know, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I started when I went to the, when I joined the child survivors, you know, I started going there. And then Zelda said to me, you know, I'm not going to the to the march this year. Would you like to go? I said, yeah, I would like to go. I wanted to go many times, but I never had the chance and the opportunity. So she said, I'll see if I could speak to somebody. And sure enough, she spoke to Ronit from March to Miriam, and then to Rochelle from Broward. And they got in touch with me, and they came to my house. They interviewed me, and they said, okay, you going? I said, okay. So I met with the students that I went with. We had a few meetings, you know, in Broward. We were 90 students, but I was on a bus with 30 students because we had 3 buses, and it was an unforgettable experience. It was a hard trip. I'm not going to deny. It was a very hard trip. To visit all the camps, you know, in Poland, and getting up early and getting on the bus and going here and going there, and seeing all these horrible, evil things that one human race could do to another was hard, very hard to accept, very hard. Why? You know, why? Because why? We're Jewish. Because we're Jews, this is what we had to go through. So many, 6 million, and children, and when you go to these museums and you see all these artifacts, these children's shoes and combs and luggage and clothing, and then going to see cemeteries and places where it was just mind-boggling. Until also when we got to Treblinka, I totally was. It was totally an emotional roller coaster. Totally, I couldn't sleep for weeks. And of course, from there we went to Israel. Was a little bit lighter, you know. But when I got back, I was really for 2 weeks. I was really sick. So they wanted me to go again this year, and I said, I still am not recuperated from the last time. But it was very emotional. And of course, everybody should go and everybody should see, because this happened. It did happen. So I did speak to it in a few places. I'm very new at this, as I get very nervous when I have to speak, but some of the schools and some of the children are very attentive, and they listen, and it's nice. I went to Oak Hammer School. I went in Dania to a high school. Those kids were not that much interested. I went to G-Star, which the kids were absolutely amazing. They were so interested. They were so kind and so asking questions and hugging and pictures. I mean, it's like a million pictures. Unbelievable experience, yes. And I have 2 more engagements in May. So I think I'm getting a little better at that. You know, I'm trying very hard, but it was hard to start with. It was very hard. So yeah, it's good. You have to let people know that this is not. It's not acceptable, you know, to this kind of hatred and this kind of behavior in anything, you know what I mean, with anybody, you know. It's not only the Jewish people, gypsies and gays and all kinds of people were killed, you know, and only 8% of the children in Europe survived, you know. And I was in Israel many times, and I always go to the, you know, to Yad Vashem and to the children's thing, and it's very, very painful. So we say never again, and we hope it's not going to be never again. But the word has to be out, and they have to know. And through education and through speaking, I think they will get it, because some of them don't get it. And I think it's because maybe their parents don't get it, or they don't care, or they don't talk to their children. So when we go to speak to these schools, at least the children will know. I mean, Oakhammer has a teacher. Her name is Balkis. I don't know if you know her.
Balkis Madeira.
Madeira. She is just absolutely wonderful. What she did to that school, it's like a museum, and the art, the kids, and they write poems, and it's just an amazing thing to see. I was there twice.
How do you think your faith in God was affected by everything that happened in Europe?
Well, I tell you, some of them never lost the faith, never. Some of them did. A lot of people did. They said, but how could this happen? How could Hashem let this happen?
And you?
You know, I ask that question many, many times, and I get the same answer all the time. I ask this rabbi, all the rabbis, and they said, God knows what he's doing. Okay? I don't know. To me, I can't wrap it around my head. I can't get through it. I'm trying. Believe me, I'm trying. I go to Torah lessons. I go to classes, and I study and this, and I'm trying to reason with this. Is it because we're not united enough? But we are united. Or maybe we at that time we weren't. Everybody was doing certain things. And maybe God wants us all to be united and all to be together. Can that happen? It's happening right now also. So I don't know. I have no answer. But I do believe, and I'm hoping that Mashiach will come someday, and soon, and solve all these problems.
So how do you think all the knowledge of what happened during the war, World War II, affected the way you raised your children? Do you think it had any effect on the way you raised your own children?
I don't think so, because it's not that I went to Auschwitz and I was in this camp or in that camp. I have survived this. It's not. I survived differently, you know. And I'm lucky that I survived differently.
But you know what happened. So how did that affect the way you're thinking?
Well, yeah. To tell my kids what happened, to give them a Jewish education, to know everything, and to be, you know, good people and kind people, and not to take anything for granted. You can't take anything for granted.
What's your feeling towards Germany, Romania, Yugoslavia, and all those countries? What are your feelings towards?
Well, I know that I know there is good people in every place, and I know there is evil in every place. The Polacks are very bad, always trying to, you know, they were telling the Germans where the Jewish people live. They hear. They were hunting them all over. You know, it's just indescribable. The Germans, horrible, terrible.
But today?
Today, I think today there's still plenty of anti-Semitism. There is plenty, and it's starting again. I'm just sorry to say that, but they're not all anti-Semites. You know, you have to look at the good in other people too. But it's happening. It's happening here, South America, Europe. It's happening. It's like here as we go, 1939 again. God forbid. Look what happened in Israel. It's hard to believe. So how do we fight this? anti-Semitism, no matter what we do. We try to educate, we try to speak about it and everything, but it's like it's coming back.
How would you compare what happened during World War II to what's happening in Israel now?
Well, it's like, well, World War II was, you know, it was horrible, horrible. This is horrible too. This is terrible. It's like a mini Holocaust. Why? Why is that, you know, that you have to go in and to kill innocent people so, with such brutality? Such brutality. It's just mind-boggling. Of course, we're very upset about it, but from our side, our part, we're doing everything we can. We're sending money, we're sending supplies, we're doing everything that we can. But the horrors that is going on there, still, so many people, who knows what's with the hostages? A lot of them died. Who knows in what conditions the others are?
Do you think what you experienced in your escape from all those countries, from Siberia to Georgia to Germany to La Paz, Bolivia, going through France, going through Belgium, affected the person you are today?
It affects you in certain ways. It does. Inside, you're broken, and it does affect you. But you try to live your life as best as you can, and to do good and to be productive and to speak to other people, and to try to be as happy as you can. And I am trying. I'm trying. I'm doing. I think I'm doing. Baruch Hashem. I think I'm doing good. You know.
What accomplishments are you most proud of?
Of having a family, my kids, my grandkids, hopefully soon great grandkids, and all the work that I'm doing. I'm very proud of that, and I'll keep doing it as long as I can.
What message would you like to leave for your future generations?
To be good people, to be kind people, be productive, talk to people. If you hear something, just say something, and keep the message out, and live a good life, the best life you can, and being kind to other people.
Are there any scenarios that we haven't covered that you'd like to include?
No, I think I did everything. I think so. You know.
I know you made a list of all the relatives that either perished or survived. Do you want to mention their names?
Yes. Okay. Okay, my father's name is Shmuel Yankel Kleidermacher, born March 14, 1907, and died May 27, 1995. I knew I wrote it down. Okay, from my father's side, my grandfather, Hanoch Kleidermacher. My grandmother, Chava Kleidermacher. My uncles and aunts, Sholem Kleidermacher, Moshe Kleidermacher, Herzke Kleidermacher, Tovie Kleidermacher, Pinchas Kleidermacher, Mordechai Kleidermacher, and Leah Kleidermacher. I have 8 of them. I don't know the other 4. Okay. From, you want me to mention their wives also?
You can just do your immediate relatives. Go ahead.
Okay. My Uncle Shulman's wife was Rivka. My Uncle Moshe's wife was Tzivia. My Herzke's wife was I forgot her name. I don't know the rest of I don't know their wives. I don't know. I'm sorry. My grandparents from my mother's side. My mother's name was Michal Kleidermacher. Noah Roseman. and Sarah Roisman. Aunts and uncles: Tama Roisman, Moshe Ber Roisman, Ellie Roisman, Esther Leah Roisman. And of course my mother, Nefertiti. My children: my son, Benjamin Miednik, born December 26, 1959. Zachary Miednik, September 20, 1994. Jacob Miednik, May 1st, 1996. Maxwell Miednik, January 15, 1999. Alexa Miednik, March 4th, 2000. My daughter, Susan Hoffman, November 16, 1962. Brendan Hoffman, July 22nd, 1994. Shane Hoffman, April 30th, 2000. Adam Hoffman, January 31st, 2005. My daughter Lillian Miednik, Spiegel, June 30th, 1966. Taylor Pervin, May 7th, 2002. Benjamin Pervin, June 22nd, 2008.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for doing this interview for me and for the Shoah Foundation.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We can stop recording.
Yeah.
Let's go over just a little bit more. Move this. Okay. We are recording.
Okay, Rose, can you tell me about this picture?
Yes. On the left side is my mother with her friends in Poland before the war. My mother's name is Michla Roisman at that time.
And spell Roisman?
Roijsman.
Thank you.
That was before the war.
And this picture?
On this picture is my father on the left and his twin sister. My father's name is Shmuel Yankel Kleidermacher, and his sister's name was Leah.
And where was this picture taken?
In Poland,
Thank you.
Sarnaki, yes, before the war. Okay, this is my mother's family. On the left you have my mother and my grandmother, Sarah. Then you have, I don't know if it's a little, I think it may be a little girl, Leah. Then you have Moshe Ber. Then you have Ellie, my grandfather Noah, and my aunt Tama.
And their last names?
Roisman.
Thank you. This one?
This picture was taken in Georgia. My mother, Michla, myself, Brazel, my mother used to call me Razel, and the boy in my mother's arms is Moshe, and she was pregnant with my brother Einach, Henry.
And approximately what year was that?
This was after we left Siberia. We went to Georgia, maybe 1942. And this picture was taken in Germany when we went to a zoo in 1945 or 1946, I'm not sure. So it's my mother, my father, my aunt. It's my mother Michla, Shmile, my aunt Rivka, her little son Aralet, the one was killed, and myself and my younger brother, and my brother Moshe. I don't know where my little brother was at that time.
Thank you.
This is my parents' invitation for the wedding when they got married in 1939. And I could read Yiddish, and it's like a telegram. And the Roisman in Konstantinov. It was, I think, in 1939. Yeah. say. I haven't got my glasses.
It's okay. It's all right.
But it's written in Yiddish.
Thank you.
Actually, it's Hebrew.